long before the found ways to trade goods directly. In this bustling marketplace, trust was the ultimate currency. In ancient Lydia, a revolution began. Merchants moved from bartering good, they created a universal standard, this pure medium of commerce forever.
Imagine waking up tomorrow morning and discovering that money has disappeared. Every coin, every banknote, every credit card, every bank account, every digital payment system gone. No salary arrives, no rent is paid, no online order is processed, no price tags make sense anymore. How would you buy bread? How would a city feed millions? How would strangers cooperate? For a moment, the modern world would freeze. And yet, for most of human history, our ancestors lived without coins, without paper money, and without banks. But they were not simply swapping chickens for bread in primitive markets. The real story is deeper, older, and far more human. Before money became metal, paper, or numbers on a screen, it was memory. It was obligation. It was reputation. It was trust. Long before cities, kingdoms, and coins, human survival depended on small groups. Families hunted, gathered, farmed, repaired shelters, made tools, cared for children, and shared food. Life was not organized around buying and selling. It was organized around cooperation. If one hunter returned with meat, others might share in the meal. If one family had more grain than it needed, another family might receive help during a difficult season. If a house needed repair, neighbors could work together, knowing that one day their own roof might need the same hands. This was not charity in the modern sense, and it was not always a calculated trade. It was a social system, a web of remembered favors, obligations, and relationships. In a small village, everyone knew who helped, who refused, who was generous, and who could be trusted. Before wealth was counted in coins, it was counted in people. Many people imagine the first economy as a simple barter system. A farmer has wheat, a potter has bowls, a shepherd has sheep. Each person trades one thing directly for another. Barter certainly existed, but modern anthropology suggests that inside close communities, everyday exchange was often more complex than simple swapping. Barter has a basic problem. Economists call it the double coincidence of wants. If you have grain and need shoes, you must find someone who has shoes and wants grain at exactly the same time. In a small community, there was a simpler solution. You could give today and receive later. A family might receive grain after a poor harvest. Months later, they might repay with meat, tools, labor, or help during building season. No coins changed hands. No receipt was printed. But people remembered, and memory was powerful. In many early societies, exchange was not separate from morality. A gift was rarely just a gift. It created connection. It built alliance. It carried expectation. To give generously could increase status. To refuse help could damage reputation. To fail to repay a remembered obligation could isolate a family. This kind of economy was not written in contracts. It was written in relationships. Everyone knew the history. Who shared in winter? Who helped during illness? Who contributed to harvest? Who could be trusted in a crisis? In this world, value was not only measured by objects. It was measured by reliability. A sharp blade mattered. A basket of grain mattered. But so did a person's name. Trust was not an abstract idea. It was the invisible structure that allowed people to survive together. But trust based only on memory has limits. As villages grew into towns and towns became cities, people began dealing with strangers. Specialists appeared. Farmers, potters, metalworkers, weavers, builders, priests, merchants, administrators. A city could contain thousands of people who did not know one another personally. The old village memory was no longer enough. Temples and palaces collected grain, stored goods, organized labor, and redistributed rations. Accounting became essential. In Mesopotamia, Clay tablets recorded deliveries, debts, loans, wages, land sales, and contracts. Human memory was becoming institutional memory. The spoken promise was becoming the written account. A mark in clay could now outlive the voice that made the promise. Before coins, people could still measure value. In Mesopotamia, barley and silver became especially important. Barley could feed workers. Silver could store value. Weights and measures allowed people to compare unlike things. A debt might be recorded in silver, even if payment was later made in goods, labor, or grain. This was one of history's great breakthroughs. Money did not need to be a coin in the hand. It could be a unit in the mind, a number on clay, a promise witnessed by others, a record stored in an archive. Long before banking apps, ancient scribes were already turning trust into data. The tablet was not just an object, it was memory made durable. It was obligation made visible. It was society learning to count its promises. As cities grew, trade stretched across astonishing distances. No single region had everything it needed. Mesopotamia lacked many raw materials, so merchants and caravans moved through mountains, deserts, rivers, and sea routes. Copper came from distant mining zones. Tin helped make bronze. Obsidian traveled from volcanic landscapes. Lapis lazuli, the deep blue stone prized by ancient elites, came from far to the east, especially Afghanistan. These goods moved through chains of exchange long before modern currency, sometimes through barter, sometimes through credit, sometimes through weighed metal, sometimes through elite gifts and diplomatic exchange. The further goods traveled, the more important trust became. A merchant needed partners, guarantors, witnesses, seals, and records. The economy was no longer just local. It was becoming a network. By the early 2nd millennium BCE, Assyrian merchants were operating complex trade networks between northern Mesopotamia and Anatolia. At Kanesh, in modern Turkey, thousands of clay tablets preserve their commercial world. They traded textiles and tin for Anatolian silver, copper, and other materials. They wrote letters home, they recorded loans, they settled disputes, they tracked debts. This was not a simple world of casual swapping. It was commercial, legal, and deeply organized. A merchant might be hundreds of kilometers from home, but his promises could travel with him, pressed into clay, sealed with identity, and protected by witnesses. The first economies were not built only on things. They were built on believable promises. Then, in Western Anatolia, a new idea appeared. Around the 7th century BCE, in the region of Lydia and neighboring Greek cities, people began striking pieces of electrum, a natural alloy of gold and silver, into standardized coins. These early coins were small and irregular, but revolutionary. They carried marks of authority, a lion's head, a punch mark, a sign that weight and value were guaranteed. Before this, metal often had to be weighed, tested, and trusted piece by piece. A coin changed the question. Instead of asking, how much metal is this? People could ask, who guarantees it? Coinage made payments faster. It helped rulers collect taxes. It helped soldiers receive pay. It helped markets expand. But coinage did not create trust from nothing. It concentrated trust into an object. A small piece of metal became a portable promise. From Lydia, coinage spread. Greek cities struck their own symbols. Empires developed systems of payment, taxation, armies, markets, and power. But money never stopped changing. Metal became coin. Coin became paper. Paper became bank balance. Bank balance became digital code. Today, most money is not something we touch. It exists as numbers inside machines. Yet the ancient principle remains. A digital transfer works because people trust banks, governments, networks, laws, and shared records. A coin worked because people trusted its stamp. A clay tablet worked because people trusted the scribe, the seal, and the witnesses. A gift worked because people trusted memory and reputation. So what existed before money? Not chaos, not endless haggling, not a world trapped by barter. Before money, there were relationships. Money became one of our most powerful tools, but it was never only metal, never only paper, never only numbers. Money is a story we agree to believe, a promise carried through time. And in the end, money did not create trust. Trust created money.